The heavy wooden doors of the courtroom creaked open, drawing all eyes to the entrance. A hush fell over the room as a young girl, no older than 10, stepped inside. She was small, fragile-looking, with soft blonde hair tied into a messy ponytail. But what caught everyone's attention wasn't just the girl. It was what walked beside her. A bobcat. Its tawny fur was sleek and well-groomed, its muscular body moving with quiet, predatory grace. Golden eyes, sharp and intelligent, flicked across the room, scanning the unfamiliar faces. Its presence sent a palpable ripple of tension through the courtroom. The judge's gavel hadn't even struck yet, but already this was no ordinary hearing. The little girl, her name was Lily Adams, clutched the bobcat's harness tightly, her small fingers barely fitting around the thick strap. She walked carefully, her expression a mixture of quiet confidence and nervousness. The bobcat, however, moved without hesitation, its ears twitching slightly at the whispers around them. Judge Harrison Ford, a seasoned man in his 60s, adjusted his glasses as he observed the peculiar duo. His years on the bench had exposed him to countless cases. Criminals, victims, liars, and innocents. But never before had a wild animal entered his courtroom like this. "Is this some kind of joke?" a lawyer muttered under his breath, shaking his head. But this was no joke. Lily and her bobcat, named Shadow, had come for a reason. The courtroom was packed. Reporters scribbled furiously, cameras flashed, and murmurs spread like wildfire. "Order!" Judge Ford finally spoke, his deep voice silencing the room. His gaze shifted to the girl. "Miss Adams, I assume you are here regarding a petition?" Lily swallowed hard and nodded. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. A legal appeal. "Yes, Your Honor," she said, her voice steady but small. "I'm here to stop them from taking Shadow away." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Now people understood. This wasn't just about bringing a bobcat into court, it was about saving it. The battle for Shadow had begun. Across the room, a stern-looking man in a gray suit, State Official Miller, stood up. His expression was unreadable, but his posture was rigid, authoritative. "Your Honor," Miller began, his voice sharp. "This is a wild animal. A bobcat does not belong in a child's care. It is neither safe for her nor for the public. The state requires immediate relocation of the animal to a proper sanctuary." Lily flinched but held her ground. Shadow, sensing her distress, let out a low, almost protective growl. The sound was enough to make a few people shift uncomfortably in their seats. Judge Ford raised a brow. He was intrigued. This wasn't a simple case of ownership. It was a battle between a law and something deeper, something human. He leaned forward. "Miss Adams, can you explain why you believe this bobcat belongs with you?" Lily took a deep breath. She knew this was her moment. If she failed, Shadow would be taken away, locked behind metal bars, away from the only family it had ever known. So, she told her story. A bond born from tragedy. "It started 2 years ago," Lily began. "My dad was a wildlife rescuer. He worked in the mountains, helping injured animals. One night, there was a storm, a really bad one. Trees were falling, lightning struck everywhere, and then there was a fire." The courtroom fell silent, every eye locked onto the little girl as she spoke. Lily's fingers curled around Shadow's fur, drawing comfort from his presence. "My dad didn't come home," she whispered, a heavy pause hanging in the air. Even Judge Ford looked taken aback. They found his truck at the edge of the forest. He had tried to save some animals caught in the fire. They said, They said he didn't make it. A few quiet gasps echoed through the room. Reporters stopped writing, their pens hovering above their notepads. Lily blinked rapidly, willing herself not to cry. When the firefighters cleared the area, they found Shadow. She was just a baby, burned, scared, and alone. My dad had tried to save her. She was the last thing he ever tried to protect. Shadow, as if sensing the weight of Lily's words, nuzzled against her leg, a soft purring sound breaking the silence. Lily looked up at the judge, her eyes shining with quiet determination. He saved her life. And when he couldn't come home, I made sure she did. The entire courtroom was still. Even Miller, the state official, looked momentarily thrown off. Judge Ford exhaled slowly, rubbing his temple. This was no longer just a legal matter. This was personal. A long silence stretched before the judge spoke again. "Miss Adams," he said carefully, "I understand your attachment. But wild animals are unpredictable. How can you be sure Shadow is safe?" Lily didn't hesitate. Instead of answering with words, she did something unexpected. She signaled Shadow. It was subtle, just a tiny movement of her fingers, but the Bobcat responded instantly. In front of a room full of people, the wild animal sat down obediently, its tail curling around its paws. Its golden eyes remained locked on Lily, waiting for her next command. The entire courtroom was in shock. Judge Ford leaned forward, fascinated. "You've trained her?" Lily nodded. "She understands me, and I understand her." Judge Ford studied them both for a long moment. Then, just as he was about to speak, something unexpected happened. Shadow's ears twitched. Then, in a flash, the Bobcat whipped its head toward the courtroom doors. Before anyone heard the sound of footsteps outside, a second later, the doors slammed open. A man in uniform rushed inside. He looked panicked, his breathing heavy. "Judge Ford, sir. There's a situation." He stopped, his eyes widening when he saw the Bobcat sitting calmly at Lily's side. But Lily wasn't looking at the officer. She was staring at Shadow. Because the Bobcat had sensed something before anyone else did. And whatever it was, wasn't good. The moment the officer burst into the courtroom, the entire room stiffened. Every eye turned toward him, but Lily's focus remained on Shadow. The Bobcat was rigid, its ears pinned back, muscles tense like a coiled spring. Something was terribly wrong. Judge Ford, composed despite the sudden interruption, cleared his throat. "Officer, what is the meaning of this?" The man hesitated, his chest rising and falling as he caught his breath. "Sir, there's been an incident outside. We need to clear the courtroom immediately." Murmurs rippled through the audience. Reporters exchanged glances, hands tightening around their pens. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Lily's grip on Shadow's harness tightened. The Bobcat had sensed danger before anyone else had. Judge Ford studied the officer for a moment before speaking. "What kind of incident?" The officer hesitated. His gaze flickered toward the doorway, as if expecting something, or someone, to come through at any moment. Lily's heart pounded. Her instincts screamed that this wasn't just a normal courtroom disturbance. And then, before the officer could answer, boom! A loud crash echoed from outside. It sounded like metal slamming against metal. People gasped. A few stood up, ready to flee. Even the judge's normally composed expression faltered. Lily's pulse quickened. What was happening? She turned to Shadow. The Bobcat was staring at the entrance, body stiff, tail flicking anxiously. Lily had seen this reaction before. It was the same way Shadow had behaved when they had encountered a predator in the wild. And that realization sent a chilling wave down her spine. This wasn't just some random disturbance. There was something out there. Shadow's warning was undeniable. Judge Ford slammed his gavel, restoring a semblance of order as people murmured in alarm. "Officer, explain what's going on now." The officer took a deep breath. "Sir, we received reports of a wild animal on the premises." Silence. Then all at once, chaos. "What do you mean, a wild animal?" one lawyer demanded. "You're saying there's another one out there?" "It's not Shadow, is it?" someone else whispered, eyes darting toward Lily's bobcat. Lily's stomach clenched. "Another animal? Here?" The officer shook his head. "No, it's not a bobcat. But it is large, and it's loose." The room tensed. Judge Ford narrowed his eyes. "What kind of animal are we dealing with?" The officer hesitated. And that hesitation said everything. Lily exhaled shakily. She turned to Shadow, pressing a hand against the bobcat's side. Shadow was breathing fast, eyes locked onto the doorway. It was as if she knew. And then, Lily remembered something. Earlier that morning, she had heard strange noises near the courthouse parking lot. At the time, she thought nothing of it, just the sound of a busy city. But now, it all made terrifying sense. Something had been lurking nearby, and Shadow had sensed it. A dangerous truth was about to be revealed. "Sir," the officer finally said, his voice tense, "it's a mountain lion." The courtroom erupted in noise. People gasped, some scrambling to grab their belongings. Lawyers and reporters whispered frantically, fear flickering in their eyes. Judge Ford immediately banged his gavel again. Everyone remained calm, but calm was impossible. A mountain lion, a fully grown predator, was roaming outside the courthouse. It was unheard of. Lily's mind raced. Mountain lions rarely wandered into human areas, and when they did, it was usually out of desperation, hunger, injury, or something worse. She looked down at Shadow. The bobcat was still focused, its muscles twitching slightly. It wasn't just reacting to the news. It was listening. Lily's breath hitched. Shadow could hear the mountain lion. The tension in the room escalated when the officer's radio crackled. A voice came through, urgent. "Confirmed visual. The lion is in the underground parking lot. It's cornered, but agitated. We need animal control immediately." Emily clenched her fists. She had to do something. She knew how these situations usually ended. Authorities would try to sedate the animal, but if it resisted, or if they deemed it too dangerous, they would put it down. She wouldn't let that happen. Lily made a decision. "Your Honor!" Lily spoke suddenly, her voice loud and clear, cutting through the fearful whispers. The judge turned to her, eyebrows raised. "I need to go down there." The room went silent again. State official Miller scoffed. "Absolutely not. This is exactly why wild animals don't belong in a courtroom or with a child." Lily ignored him. Her eyes were locked onto the judge. "Please, I have experience with animals. I know how to approach them. I know what to do." Judge Ford studied her carefully. "Lily, that is an incredibly dangerous situation." "I know," she said, her voice unwavering. "But if we don't handle it the right way, that mountain lion is going to die." Silence. Even Miller hesitated at that. Lily took a step forward. "You've seen how Shadow reacts to me. She trusts me. And I know that mountain lions are different. But I also know they don't attack unless they feel threatened." She swallowed, her voice softening slightly. "I just need a chance to help." For a long moment, Judge Ford said nothing. He just studied the young girl standing so firmly before him. Then, at last, he let out a slow breath. "How would you do it?" Lily's heart leaped. "I need to see it first. I need to understand if it's scared, injured, or just lost. If I can figure out what's wrong, I can help calm it down." The judge tapped his fingers on the desk. He wasn't the kind of man to take reckless risks. But he had also seen something extraordinary today. A bond between a girl and a wild animal, unlike anything he had ever witnessed. He turned to the officer. "Is the parking lot secure?" The officer nodded. "It's empty. Everyone has been cleared out." Judge Ford sighed. Then finally, he gave a single nod. "All right." Lily exhaled in relief. But then the judge raised a hand. "Under one condition." Lily tensed. "What is it?" "You don't go alone," he said, his gaze flicking to the Bobcat. "Shadow goes with you." Lily blinked in surprise. Then, after a moment, she nodded. She wouldn't have it any other way. The courtroom was still buzzing as Lily turned to Shadow. The Bobcat was already alert, as if it knew what was coming. She knelt beside her companion, pressing her forehead gently against Shadow's. "Are you ready for this girl?" she whispered. Shadow let out a soft, deep purr, the kind that told Lily everything she needed to know. They were in this together. As Lily and Shadow turned toward the exit, the entire courtroom watched in silence. Even Miller, usually skeptical, looked uncertain. Judge Ford gave her one last, firm look. "Be careful, Miss Adams." Lily nodded. And then, with her Bobcat by her side, she stepped out of the courtroom, toward the unknown. Lily's heart pounded as she stepped through the heavy courthouse doors, Shadow close at her side. The air outside was thick with tension. Officers were scattered around the building's perimeter, radios crackling with urgent chatter. She could feel the weight of every stare. Reporters, police officers, and courtroom spectators who had followed to witness what was about to unfold. But none of that mattered. Her focus was on the underground parking lot. That's where the mountain lion was waiting. A tall officer approached, gripping his radio. "Miss Adams, are you sure about this?" Lily lifted her chin. "Yes." She glanced down at Shadow, who was standing still, ears pricked forward. The Bobcat wasn't scared, just alert. She was already listening for the mountain lion. Another officer hesitated. "We've got animal control on the way. They'll handle it." Lily clenched her fists. "If they handle it the way they usually do. That animal won't leave here alive." That made the officers pause. The lead officer sighed. "All right, but you listen to my commands. The second this gets dangerous, we're pulling you out." Lily nodded. Understood. With that, she stepped toward the darkened entrance of the underground lot. Shadow padded beside her, silent as a shadow. The parking garage was eerily quiet. The sounds of the city faded behind them, replaced by the soft hum of flickering overhead lights. The air was thick with the scent of oil and damp concrete, and something else. Something wild. Shadow paused, her ears twitching. Lily immediately followed her lead, stopping in her tracks. She listened, the scrape of claws against pavement, a low, rumbling breath. Lily's stomach tightened. The mountain lion was close. She took a careful step forward, scanning the dimly lit space. The police had cleared the area, but the tension still lingered like an unseen force. Then, movement. In the farthest corner of the garage, half hidden behind a row of concrete pillars, a shape shifted in the shadows. Lily's breath caught. There it was, a fully grown mountain lion, its golden fur rippling under the dim light, muscles tense like coiled steel. Its ears were pinned back, eyes glowing with fear and uncertainty. and it was watching them. Lily forced herself to stay calm. Fear wouldn't help here. She knelt beside Shadow, keeping her voice steady. "Do you see him, girl?" Shadow didn't move, but Lily could feel the shift in her posture. A quiet understanding. The bobcat let out a soft chuffing sound, low and reassuring. The mountain lion's ears twitched. Lily exhaled slowly. Good. It was listening. Carefully, she removed her backpack and unzipped it, pulling out a bundle of dried meat. It wasn't much, but it was something. She held it out, making sure her movements were slow and deliberate. "I know you're scared," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're not supposed to be here, are you?" The mountain lion didn't move, but its eyes flicked to the food in her hands. Lily took a careful step forward. The officers behind her tensed. She could hear them whispering into their radios, ready to intervene. But she didn't stop. She took another step. The mountain lion let out a low warning growl. Shadow, still at Lily's side, responded with a soft trill. Not a threat, but a message. Lily knew what Shadow was doing. She was speaking the language of the wild, and the mountain lion was listening. Lily's gaze shifted lower. That's when she saw it. A deep gash along the lion's front leg. Her breath caught. That's why it was acting this way. It was hurt. That changed everything. Lily lowered herself onto one knee, keeping her movements slow and non-threatening. "You're injured, aren't you?" The lion snorted, a sharp huffing sound. Its muscles tensed as if preparing to bolt. But Lily wasn't going to let that happen. She set the food down gently and leaned back. "I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to help." For a long, agonizing moment, the mountain lion didn't move. Then it sniffed the air, a slow, cautious movement. Lily held her breath. This was the moment of truth. Shadow remained perfectly still beside her, body relaxed but alert. She wasn't afraid. And because of that, neither was Lily. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the lion took a step forward, then another, and another. Lily's heart pounded as the massive creature emerged fully from the shadows. The officers behind her muttered anxiously, their hands hovering over their radios. But Lily didn't flinch. Instead, she extended her hand, palm up, a universal gesture of peace. The lion lowered its head, and for the first time, Lily saw something flicker in its golden eyes. Not fear, not aggression, but trust. "He's not a danger," Lily said, her voice firm, slowly turning her head to address the officers. "He's hurt." One of the officers hesitated. "That doesn't mean he's safe." Lily took a slow, steady breath. "Let me treat his wound." Another round of anxious muttering. The police weren't convinced. Then, to everyone's shock, Judge Ford himself stepped into the garage. His expression was unreadable as he watched Lily, then the mountain lion. Finally, he spoke. "You really believe you can help it, Miss Adams?" Lily met his gaze. "Yes." The judge exhaled slowly. Then he turned to the officers. "Stand down," he ordered. The tension in the room shifted. Lily turned back to the lion, her fingers brushing gently against her first aid kit. She had one chance to prove she was right. One chance to save this animal's life. With Shadow at her side, she took it. The underground parking garage was silent, except for the quiet breathing of the massive mountain lion. Lily's fingers trembled slightly as she reached for her first aid kit. She knew she had to be careful. One wrong move, and everything could fall apart. Shadow sat close, her eyes locked onto the injured lion. She wasn't afraid. Instead, she exuded calm confidence. A silent message that everything was okay. Lily took a slow breath and unzipped the kit. The sound made the mountain lion's ears twitch. She froze. The lion's golden eyes flicked to her hands, watching every movement. It was still uncertain. Lily kept her voice soft. "You're okay, I promise." She carefully pulled out a bottle of antiseptic and a roll of bandages. The lion huffed, not a growl, not a snarl, just a cautious sound. Lily took that as permission to continue. She poured some antiseptic onto a clean cloth, inching closer. Every instinct told her to move slowly. Shadow let out a quiet chuffing sound, another reassuring signal. Then, the unthinkable happened. The lion lowered its head. It wasn't submission, it was trust. Lily's heart pounded as she gently pressed the cloth against the wound. The lion flinched. A deep growl rumbled in its throat. The police behind her tensed, hands hovering over weapons. Lily didn't stop. "I know it stings," she whispered, her voice unwavering, "but it'll help. I promise." Shadow let out another soft trill. The lion's muscles twitched, but it didn't attack. Emily pressed the cloth against the wound again, this time applying more pressure. Blood seeped into the fabric, but the antiseptic worked fast. The lion let out a deep, shuddering breath. Lily felt it. Then, the shift. The tension drained from the lion's body. Its ears relaxed. It was still watching her, but now, there was no fear. A silent audience watched in stunned silence. This wasn't something they saw every day. Judge Ford stepped closer. His voice was low, almost hesitant. "How did you know it wouldn't attack, Miss Adams?" Lily didn't look away from her work. "Because animals don't hurt for no reason," she said simply. "They only lash out when they feel threatened. Right now, he doesn't feel threatened." The judge studied her. "And why is that?" Lily secured the bandage and finally looked up. "Because of Shadow," she said, a small smile touching her lips. Judge Ford turned his gaze to the bobcat. Shadow sat calmly, her tail curled neatly around her paws. The realization hit him. This bobcat, it's more than just a pet, isn't it? He murmured. Lily smiled slightly. She's family. The mountain lion shifted, testing its newly wrapped leg. Lily pulled back, giving it space. This was the moment of truth. Would it accept the help, or would it turn and run? For a few seconds, it just stood there. Then, it took a slow step forward. Lily held her breath. Another step, and then it brushed its massive head against Shadow's side. A stunned silence filled the parking garage. Shadow let out a soft purr and nudged the lion in return. Lily's chest tightened. It understood. This wasn't just about survival. It had accepted them as friends. It was a decision that would change everything. The officers exchanged looks. Judge Ford crossed his arms. "Miss Adams," he said, his voice filled with unexpected admiration. "You've done something remarkable here. But what happens next?" Lily glanced at the lion. It wasn't safe here. It couldn't stay. But she couldn't just let animal control take it either. She made her decision. "I'll take him to a wildlife sanctuary," she said, her voice clear and determined. "I know a place. They can help him heal properly and release him safely." The judge studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "All right," he said. "You have my permission." The police officers looked surprised, but none of them objected. Judge Ford stepped forward, looking at the lion once more. Then he turned back to Lily. "You've earned my respect today," he admitted. Lily smiled. "Thank you, Your Honor." An hour later, Lily sat in the back of a specially prepared transport van. Shadow was curled up beside her. The mountain lion lay on a thick blanket, bandaged and resting peacefully. Lily stroked Shadow's fur. "We did it, girl," she murmured. Shadow let out a contented purr. The road stretched ahead of them, leading not just to the sanctuary, but to a new beginning for all of them. The van hummed softly as it rolled down the long, winding road toward the wildlife sanctuary. The night had stretched on, but Lily didn't feel tired. Instead, she sat with Shadow curled beside her, watching the injured mountain lion breathe steadily. It was the first time it had truly rested. For the past hour, it had remained alert, its golden eyes flicking between Lily and the moving scenery outside. But now, as the gentle rocking of the van soothed it, its muscles finally relaxed. Trust. That was what this moment was about. Shadow had built a bridge between them, proving that even the wildest of creatures could recognize kindness. Lily's heart swelled with quiet triumph. But she knew the journey wasn't over yet. As the van approached the sanctuary gates, Lily noticed movement near the entrance. A group of people stood waiting, some in ranger uniforms, others in plain clothes. One man stepped forward as soon as the van stopped. His name was Dr. Evelyn Reed, the head wildlife veterinarian at the sanctuary. He didn't look happy. Lily stepped out, keeping her movements calm. Shadow followed closely, her tail flicking. Dr. Reed crossed his arms. "Lily, what have you brought me this time?" he asked, his tone a mixture of exasperation and concern. She smiled slightly. "Something special." His eyes flicked toward the van. "A mountain lion? Injured?" Lily nodded. "Gunshot wound. I treated it as best as I could, but he still needs proper care before he can be released." Dr. Reed was rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Lily, do you know what kind of risk you've taken? This could have ended very differently." She met his gaze without hesitation. "I knew the risks, but I also knew he deserved a chance." Dr. Reed studied her for a long moment. Then he glanced at the bobcat sitting calmly by her feet. Shadow let out a small chuff, as if she too was making her case. Something softened in Dr. Reed's face. "All right," he said finally. "Let's take a look at him." The team carefully transferred the mountain lion onto a stretcher and wheeled him toward the examination area. The moment the lion was placed on the table, his eyes snapped open, his muscles tensed. Fear. Lily felt it instantly. She stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on his side. "It's okay," she whispered. "I'm still here." The lion's breathing slowed. Dr. Reed watched with quiet amazement. "I've never seen anything like this," he admitted. Lily smiled softly. "He trusts us." The next hour was critical. Dr. Reed and his team worked quickly, removing the bullet fragments and carefully stitching the wound. Lily stayed beside the lion the entire time, whispering words of reassurance. Shadow, too, never left his side. The sanctuary team watched in stunned silence as a wild bobcat and a mountain lion, two natural rivals, sat in perfect harmony. Dr. Reed glanced at Lily. "Do you realize what you've done?" She looked up. "What do you mean?" He gestured to the two animals. "You've rewritten the rules. This isn't just about rescue anymore. It's about connection." Lily swallowed. Maybe it always was. Hours later, the lion lay in a spacious outdoor enclosure, still drowsy from the procedure. Lily sat nearby, watching him. Dr. Reed joined her. "He's going to be fine," he said. "With time, he'll heal. Then we can decide the next steps." Lily nodded. "He belongs in the wild, but I don't want him to feel abandoned." Dr. Reed studied her. "So, what do you propose?" She hesitated. "Let me be part of his rehabilitation." Dr. Reed sighed. Lily, I know what you're going to say. She cut in gently. But you saw it back there. He's different. He's already formed a bond with me, with Shadow. If we let that fade too soon, he might not survive when he's released. Dr. Reed considered her words carefully. Then he nodded. All right, he said. We'll do it your way. For the next few days, Lily dedicated herself to helping the lion adjust. She stayed near his enclosure, speaking to him softly, ensuring he never felt alone. Shadow played a vital role too, staying close, offering comfort in the way only animals could. Slowly, the lion regained his strength, and something incredible happened. He began to trust again. Not just Lily, not just Shadow, but the world around him. A wild heart was ready to roam. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting long golden rays over the sanctuary. Lily stood at the edge of the enclosure, her hands resting gently on the wooden railing. Inside, the mountain lion stretched his powerful limb, his golden coat gleaming under the sunlight. His wounds had healed remarkably well, and the strength had returned to his body. But something even more extraordinary had happened. He had transformed. No longer was he the frightened, injured creature Lily had first encountered. He had regained his pride, his confidence. Yet, his eyes still softened when he looked at her and Shadow. Lily knew what this meant. It was time to say goodbye, a bittersweet farewell. Dr. Reed approached, clipboard in hand. It's time, Lily. She swallowed hard, nodding. I know. The sanctuary team had been preparing for this day. The plan was simple. Take the lion back to the wild, to a safe region far from human threats, where he could reclaim his place in nature. Yet, as the gate to the transport vehicle opened, Lily hesitated. She stepped forward and crouched down beside the lion one last time. Hey, big guy, she murmured, stroking his fur gently. He rumbled softly, leaning into her touch for just a moment. Shadow sat beside them, watching quietly. She too seemed to understand that this was their last moment together. Lily took a deep breath. You're going to be okay out there. You're strong, you're free, and you'll always be a survivor. The lion blinked slowly, a gesture of trust. Then, with one last deep breath, he turned and walked toward the open transport vehicle. He was ready. The journey back to the wild, Lily rode in the vehicle with him, watching as the world passed by, a blur of green forests and winding rivers. Every mile brought them closer to their destination, a vast, protected wilderness. She had promised herself she wouldn't cry, but as the truck slowed, her chest tightened. This was truly the end. The back of the transport vehicle was unlatched. A ramp was lowered, leading out into the open wild. Lily stepped back, giving him space. For a moment, the lion stood still, his gaze locked on the trees ahead. Then he moved, with slow, powerful strides. He descended the ramp. He reached the grass and took a deep breath of freedom. And then he ran. Powerful, graceful, wild. Lily watched, her heart pounding, as he disappeared into the trees. Gone, just as it was meant to be. Just as the team began to pack up, something happened that no one expected. The lion stopped. From a distance, he turned his head back. For a long moment, he stood there, his golden eyes meeting Lily's, and then he roared. The sound echoed through the valley, a deep, resonant call that sent shivers down Lily's spine. It wasn't just a roar. It was a message, a thank you, a goodbye. And then, he was truly gone. The ride back to the sanctuary was quiet. Shadow curled in Lily's lap, her ears flicking as she purred softly. Lily stared out the window, feeling the weight of the moment. She had saved a life. But more than that, she had proven that trust, kindness, and courage could bridge even the widest gaps. Dr. Reed, sitting beside her, finally spoke. "You did something incredible, Lily." She gave a small smile. "I didn't do it alone." She glanced at Shadow, who let out a small, approving chuff. The mountain lion was gone. But his story, their story, would live on. And somewhere deep in the wild, a lion was running free because someone believed in him, and that, she knew, was more than enough. Valuable lesson. This story reminds us that true understanding and connection can transcend fear and perceived boundaries, particularly between humans and the wild. It teaches us that sometimes the most powerful laws are not written in books, but in the bonds of trust and empathy. It highlights the courage it takes to stand up for what is right, even when it seems impossible, and the profound impact one person's kindness can have on the life of another, whether human or animal. What did you think of Lily and Shadow's incredible journey? Let us know in the comments below. How would you rate this story on a scale of 1 to 10? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more amazing stories.